Welcome back to another Micmac Tabletop review. Today we'll be taking a look at the Taurus Spectrum 380 semi-automatic pocket pistol. This is a Spectrum, a 380 micro pocket pistol from Taurus. If you've watched many of my videos, you probably know that over the years I've ended up collecting a bunch of small pocket guns. 22s, 25s, 32s, and 380 micro pistols. I like these small firearms. Of course, little guns in the category of the Glock 42 or Ruger LCP 380, while popular, aren't as popular as they used to be. The small 380 pocket pistol boom began back in the early 2000s with the introduction of what is considered to be the first of these pocket rockets, the Kel-Tec P3AT. People were attracted to the idea of an affordable, small, light, polymer, easy to carry and conceal 380 pistol. Throughout the next 2 decades, it seemed that everybody tried to get in on the action, and a lot of companies developed their own small 380 pocket guns. But people also soon came to realize that a tiny gun with limited capacity, short barrel, small sights, and lightweight wasn't usually comfortable to shoot or control, and accuracy could be a challenge. So people have been trading their little 380s in for larger capacity double stack and even larger capacity compact options hitting the market as interest in the 380 pocket pistols has cooled. The result today is a fairly flooded market of used 380 pocket pistols out there. However, that also means that sometimes you can find some pretty neat deals, so I keep my eyes open to take advantage of those opportunities when they arise. And that's how I recently found this Taurus Spectrum 380. I came across it along with its 2 magazines at a local dealer a couple of months ago for just $100. I know, it's a Taurus, and yes, I was a little cautious, but the Spectrum actually has a fairly decent reputation, and this one was without sign of much wear. It was tight and the action appeared smooth, so for $100, what the heck. If you're not familiar with the Spectrum, you may think it's a little strange looking, sort of futuristic, I suppose, or perhaps just weird with these colored padded areas. In fact, that's where the name Spectrum came from, as in color spectrum, to reflect a wide variety of color combinations that were available. For $100, I'm pretty confident I did just fine, but let's take a closer look and see if I wasted my money. Now, before we go any further, let's make sure this gun is cleared first, and by the way, if you enjoy this review, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I've covered the Taurus company many times before in my previous reviews, so I won't go into much here except acknowledge Taurus has had its problems. Yes, Taurus doesn't have the best reputation, but more recently Taurus is under new management, appears to be trying to improve its products and its image. With very competitive pricing and a great lifetime service guarantee even if you're not the original owner, and having produced a number of highly successful models, Taurus has begun to build a more positive reputation. Now that being said, what's the story behind the Taurus Spectrum? Well, as I said, Taurus, like many other companies, during the 380 pocket pistol boom of the past 2 decades, developed a micro-compact semi-automatic handgun geared specifically for concealed carry and personal defense, the Spectrum. The marketing tagline for the Spectrum was "Shaping the Future of Everyday Carry," and Taurus boasted at the time that the Spectrum was a completely new gun engineered by American gun enthusiast engineers. In fact, expectations were quite high because the Spectrum 380 was supposed to be just one example of the new Taurus. And indeed, initial interest in the Spectrum was quite high. As you can see, it's a small polymer frame semi-automatic handgun chambered for a 380 ACP, but actually it wasn't Taurus's first 380 pocket pistol attempt. Taurus produced 2 earlier 380 pocket pistols. The first was the Taurus TCP 380, produced between 2009 and 2016. I actually bought a TCP 380 many years ago and traded it the first week of ownership. So my memory of the TCP 380 wasn't a very good one from what I can recall. Taurus also came out with the Curve between 2015 and 2018, which was Taurus's attempt to create a small 380 carry gun complete with everything you might need already built in on a pistol, including a light and laser. Even a belt clip and special holsters were provided. Uniquely, the curve was molded actually bent or curved to better fit against your body, assuming you're right-handed, and came with 2 magazines and, as I said, a special holster equipped with a lanyard. As you can see, it was a bit of an odd creation. At the time that Taurus released the Spectrum in 2017, my hopes were high that Taurus had learned something from these earlier 380 pocket pistol creations. Taurus even hyped the Spectrum as being part of a new era of quality and reliability for the company. Although the Spectrum has an unusual look to it, its appearance wasn't all that surprising, given that Taurus had produced the innovative Curve just a few years earlier. By comparison, the Spectrum was actually quite conventional. As I said, Taurus made a big deal about its heavy focus on the specific purpose of the Spectrum, being designed specifically for concealed carry by gun enthusiast engineers. As such, its external shape and edges have an ultra-smooth profile to reduce the chances of snags and allow for easy draw. The narrow frame allows for discreet carry, while the grip shape and padded grip areas provide a secure and comfortable fit for the user's hands. And responding to a growing request for preferred color combinations, Taurus used the opportunity of the polymer frame and rubberized inlays to offer the Spectrum in a rainbow of color options. Some would say the Taurus sort of overreacted to those needs in its design of the Spectrum. Whatever, well, the Spectrum seemed to have a good start. It ended up having a fairly short production life and was discontinued in 2021. True, that may have been due somewhat to the softening of the public's interest in 380 pocket pistols in general at that time, and perhaps the scarcity and high cost of 380 ammo also at that time. Certainly these factors wouldn't have helped. As for specifications, the Taurus Spectrum 380 is a striker-fired, tilt-lock action barrel design with a double action-only trigger. The slide and barrel are stainless steel. The frame is polymer. Note that there are no slide serrations, rather we have grip panels here with a soft touch rubber material, also in the grip area. There's a hollowed out area on the slide here, creating sort of wings that allow for extra grabbing power on the slides. In theory, there were to be a large number of color combinations available. Sights are milled in, non-adjustable, notch and post. Takedown involves a rotating key on the right side above the trigger. There's no external safety, but there is an internal safety mechanism. There's a small slide stop release here. Magazine release is here and can be swapped to the opposite side. And there's no magazine disconnect. Magazines are Italian-made single stack 6+1 or extended 7+1 with plastic red followers. The trigger has a long pull at about 8 pounds with double strike capabilities. The pull stacks just a bit just before the break. Height is 3.8 inches. Width is 0.89 inches. Length is 5.4 inches. And the weight is 10 ounces. As for packaging, the Taurus Spectrum would have come in a traditional white and orange Taurus cardboard box along with a flush base 6+1 magazine and an extended 7+1 round magazine. In addition to the customary lock, there would also have been a manual along with other paperwork. Now before we hit the range, let's talk a little bit about function. The Spectrum is fairly close to the size of a Glock 42 or Ruger LCP, but it's much more rounded in its feel. The molded rubber-like inlays provide a fairly decent grip sensation. With the flush magazine, the Spectrum is a 2-fingered gun grip similar to most 380 pocket pistols, but a good full grip can be achieved with the extended magazine, although not everyone likes the extended pinky area. Personally, with the extended magazine, the Spectrum is actually one of the best feeling micros in my collection. Really. The magazine release works smoothly to fully eject the magazine. The magazines are well-made steel with red followers. 6 rounds in the flush magazine and 7 in the extended. Loading that last round into the magazine can be difficult with new magazines. The magazine inserts nicely with a good solid click when driven home. Racking the slide is rather light and smooth. By the way, this gun has a slide catch. It will stay open after the last round is fired. The slide catch is small and rather stiff, so don't expect to release it easily with the sweep of your thumb. There's no external safety. The sights are simple, but of a reasonable size for a pocket pistol. The notch and post provide a decent sight picture. The Spectrum's long trigger pull is the gun's safety, so this gun should definitely not be carried with a round in the chamber without a trigger-covered holster. Trigger is double action only. I measured trigger pull to average 8.1 pounds on this particular gun. To me, the trigger seems small, but I like the width, which seems wider than my other micro pistols. The trigger pull is long with only a short take-up, typical for micro pocket pistols without thumb safeties, but comfortable and moderate in weight. On the other hand, the trigger on this gun seems quite gritty. Okay, let's see how we do at the range. At the range, I've got the 6-inch target set out to 15 feet. This is my typical setup for pocket pistols. This gun is intended for close-up work, so let's just see how I do. I'm using the flush magazine to start with, and we're shooting Remington 95 grain full metal jacket rounds today. That's pretty good. Nice tight pattern. This gun seems accurate enough. Minimal muzzle flip. Very comfortable. Let's move the target out to 25 feet and try the extended magazine. Well, not as good, but in fact, it's okay for a 6-inch target at 25 feet with a pocket gun. And you know, I have to say this gun actually feels pretty good. Easy to rack, good fit, feels solid. I'm going to push the target out to 35 feet and see how I do. And we're going back to the flush magazine. Again, not bad for these sights, but I think I've reached my accuracy limit for a 6-inch target with this little gun. Still, I think the gun is doing its part. I'm going to bring the target back in the 25 feet and try some rapid fire with the extended magazine again. Well, it looks like I got only half of my shots on target. To be honest, I'm not particularly happy with this trigger. I'm getting some trigger finger pinching. As for accuracy, I think with practice I actually could do better. Staying at 25 feet and staying with the extended magazine, which actually feels very good. Let's see what I can do with my last shots. Okay, so I seem accurate enough with this little gun, especially with the extended magazine. Not bad. The gun feels good in my hand, the sights are fine, felt recoil is okay, good control, no malfunctions, no ammo problems, and the Spectrum is a fairly comfortable gun to shoot. I'll admit, I actually kind of like it. As for cons, let's start with the Spectrum being a Taurus product. And while Taurus has certainly been making progress in improving its products and image, there are those that soon won't forget past issues, and beyond the company name, reviews of the Spectrum would have fortunately revealed substantial performance complaints. Break-in issues, dependability issues, light strikes, failures to cycle, failures to load last round, and ammo finicky issues top the list. And there are also customer service complaints, but those seem to have improved. In addition, getting that last round into the magazines would be a challenge, and as I mentioned earlier, this trigger seems quite gritty, although I've been told it should improve with use. And too bad Taurus didn't equip the Spectrum with a captured recoil spring and rod, because that would have certainly reduced frustration at reassembly. Fortunately, if this is an issue for you, Galloway Precision has a solution for only $27. Now I should mention that I bought this used Spectrum at a local gun store that has its own range, and the store gave me a free range pass worth $25 along with my $100 purchase. So I sort of see this gun as costing me about $75, even better. but I decided to take the gun to the range while I was there. That was probably a mistake because the gun was used and hadn't been cleaned or oiled yet. And the result was that I did have a number of failures to cycle during my first 50 rounds of testing this gun. I figure I kind of got what I paid for. But later, back at the range another day after I had thoroughly cleaned and oiled the gun, I had no malfunctions at all through 2 boxes, 100 rounds of mixed ammo including hollow points. Yes, this gun does seem to get pretty dirty during use, although it could be the ammo used, and it does appear to affect the gun's function. As for pros, and as I mentioned earlier, the Spectrum with its extended magazine is indeed one of the best feeling in the hand micro pistols I own. It really does feel very good. It's small and light, yet comfortable to shoot. There's a slide stop lever on this gun, and the slide stays open after the last round is shot. The sights are usable for this gun, and the price is very attractive. This gun is simple to use, accurate, seems dependable when clean and oiled, requires little maintenance, and can be easily carried. As I pointed out earlier, one of the most striking differences of the Spectrum compared to other 380 micro pistols was the extraordinary selection of color combinations provided. If that's important to you, there's no other pistol I'm aware of that offered so many different options, although in fact, Taurus eventually failed to meet market expectations on this issue beyond its standard colors, and in the end scaled back to offering only black frames with your choice of matte stainless or matte black slides. Another significant difference was Taurus's increased use of soft, overmolded polymer inserts, again offered in different colors at key points of the frame and the slide of the gun. The purpose was to improve the shooter's grip when firing and manipulating the gun. This rubberized material does indeed offer more friction for gripping without feeling sticky, replacing the traditional slide serrations with these soft polymer pads within scalloped areas. Here, along with the elimination of all sharp edges, certainly help to give the Spectrum a unique look. As for disassembly, it's really quite simple. After making sure the gun is cleared, remove the magazine. Use a shell casing or a flathead screwdriver to turn the takedown pin counterclockwise a quarter turn, which will release the slide. Pull the slide forward and off the frame. Remove the spring and guide rod. Remove the barrel. That's as far as I would suggest for cleaning. The firing pin can be removed, and there are a few videos out there on that process, but I highly suggest you don't try unless you feel it's absolutely necessary. There can be way more misery involved than it's worth. But if you do, don't try to remove the firing pin block because of all the weird launching of springs and parts into oblivion involved. Just removing the firing pin by itself can be accomplished by pressing the firing pin in and removing this back piece here. Then carefully catching the firing pin and its spring. Of course, removal's not the problem. It's getting it back together, which is the reverse, but requires considerable patience and dexterity. So we won't be doing that here. Reassembly after field stripping is just the reverse. Return the barrel to the frame. Return the guide rod and spring to the slide. Note that the flat end of the guide rod sits on the forward lower notch of the barrel. Okay, this sounds simple, but the guide rod spring is flat and long and it isn't captured. You'll want to spring out of alignment. Also, the barrel will want to roll out of position. And the end of the guide rod doesn't always want to exit the end of the slide as it should. And again, you can obtain an aftermarket captured guide rod and recoil spring from Galloway Precision for about $27 if you want to avoid this issue completely. Once together, make sure everything is aligned properly, then return the slide to the frame, racking the slide back. The slide takedown pin will automatically return to the locked position. Return the magazine and test for function. When the Spectrum was first released, it had a manufacturer's suggested retail price of about $300. More if you wanted Spectrum in the 3-color option. But the manufacturer suggested retail price of the Spectrum at the time that it was discontinued in 2021 had been reduced to just $224. Again, more if you wanted a color option. But I think it's interesting that even today, actual national sale values of the new Spectrum have remained close to that amount. Of course, new in the box Spectrums are becoming harder to find, although I've seen internet ads from time to time. But again, prices are typically closer to that $224 price. However, don't be surprised to see most ads for the new Spectrum to be sold out or no longer in stock. It would seem that the Spectrum are still somewhat popular from my own experience. For example, I saw a new in the box black and purple colored Spectrum at a gun show last year for $325. My generous offer of $275 was turned down. So if you add this to the current average used value of the Taurus Spectrum, which True Gun Value and Genetron.com suggests is about $175, it would be easy to conclude that the Spectrum continues to enjoy a pretty good level of popularity for what it is. The fact is, most of Taurus products tend to be offered at low prices, and that's one of the reasons for their attractiveness in the market. But of course, a reputation for poor functioning, performance, or relevance won't be ignored. But note that the Spectrum's used value has only dropped by $5 in the market since last year. So it would appear that the Taurus Spectrum is a .380 pocket pistol that's holding its own for now. As such, if you find a nice used one with both magazines offered for that average used price of about $175, that would probably be quite fair. But also remember that I was able to pick this one up at a local dealer for only $100, so deals are out there. Now before we end today's video, I'd like to remind you, if you haven't already, be sure to like, share, and subscribe down below. And thanks for watching. In summary, the Spectrum was the brainchild of Taurus in an attempt to improve its image and achieve a more dominant role in the .380 micro pistol market. Named for what was intended to be its rainbow assortment of color options, the Spectrum emphasized its intention as a super snag-free micro pistol ergonomically designed to change the way we thought of concealed carry. Unfortunately, those high expectations were never fully realized. But today, the Spectrum continues to enjoy good reliability and performance reviews and appears to be appreciated by enough fans that these little pistols are becoming harder to find, although prices remain close to the original manufacturer's suggested retail price, making the Taurus Spectrum potentially a good choice for collectors, enthusiasts, and anyone looking for a good affordable pocket pistol. So wrapping up, where do I stand on the Taurus Spectrum? Yes, it's a little quirky, but I sort of like it, and I seem to be pretty good with it. It could have a better trigger, and a captured recoil spring and rod would be nice, but overall, from my experience, I think it's a pretty good little pocket pistol. Of course, I can't ignore the complaints I've seen during my investigation of the Spectrum. As a self-defense pocket carry, dependability is essential, and there are just too many who question the reliability of the Spectrum. On the other hand, once cleaned up and properly lubricated, this one has performed as it should for me, at least so far. No problems. I like its feel, the sights are good, it shoots fine, it fits well in a conventional pocket holster, and I'm accurate enough with it at close range. Since I only paid $100 for this one, I'm quite pleased with it for what it is. Now that being said, and although I don't think it's going to replace any of my more preferred and trusted pocket pistols anytime soon, if you've got one of these and you found it dependable, why not carry it? After all, any weapon you carry is better than the one you left at home. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll be back for my next tabletop review. Until next time, stay safe.